to our weekly live broadcast. This time we're experimenting. We've been just doing these on YouTube. Now we're doing them on lots of devices that are here in front of me, and I've got mics on me, all like bugs. So I'm going to be trying a few different platforms, I guess you would say. See if that is more convenient for some of you. If not, we will just go right back to YouTube. So in these weekly tea sessions, we of course drink some tea together and then talk about life. It's kind of what Cha Dao is, or what a big part of what tea is. Drink tea and talk about what's important. There's a Chinese saying actually older than the modern word for tea, which is cha, ping ming lun dao, which means drink tea and talk about the Dao, talk about what's important. We can also talk about tea if you like. But let's start with 3 bowls of tea. I hope that wherever you are, you're safe and comfortable and at ease and peaceful, and that you have some good tea to drink together with us. So there was nice 3 bowls. Hope your 3 bowls was very nice. Today, before we have a little lesson and then some Q&A, I have 3 announcements that I'd like to make. The first one is for those of you who weren't here last week. I also announced there that I have a new website for my artwork, which I'm very excited about. It's called T-Dyed Art. We'll put the link below. I'm not very great at painting. Sometimes I think my paintings are childish, but I really love doing it. It really brings me a lot of joy. And I try to paint with a lot of tea spirit. And I actually use tea liquor. I use tea liquor to grind all my ink and pigments, and sometimes even splash the tea over the painting itself. And so you could go to T-Dyed Art and check it out, and there's some really cool scrolls and paintings, and a lot of tea spirit in them. And you can also commission one, and really cool thing I'm doing is, if you want, I can use any of Light Meets Life teas in your painting. I just did a commission for a dear tea brother with root. He loves root, so I put it into the painting all over the place. The second announcement is just to talk a teeny bit, I think, because a lot of people are a little confused about the new subscription models, which are, obviously in an effort to incentivize and raise more money for us to build your center, to build Light Meets Life as soon as possible. And kind of what they are. So now for the first time we're offering digital subscription, so you can get just the magazine in a digital version. You can get just the tea, and then you get the magazine in a digital version. And then we have tiers of subscription. And for those long-term Global Tea Hut members, these higher tiers are a lot like the expansion packs that used to be. We used to offer occasionally these expansion packs because Global Tea Hut, the size of Global Tea Hut, means that we are constricted in the teas that we choose to send as the tea of the month along with every magazine. Of course we're constricted. We're constricted by the quantity, and we're constricted by the finances. Obviously we have a budget for Global Tea Hut. And so that budget and that large quantity that we need to get the tea of the month can make it challenging to send teas of the qualities and educational value that we would like. But that said, throughout these 100 issues of Global Tea Hut, we have had some amazing quality teas because of the generosity of people who donated them, even though they were well beyond the budget. And that continues to happen. So occasionally there's a tea of the month that just, just way above what we could ordinarily send. But it's not just money. It's also the fact that, like, some of the teas that would be the most educational in terms of the topic that we're discussing in that month's magazine are also not available in that quantity, in such a large quantity. So these higher tier subscriptions are like the expansion packs, which we used to offer separately. Expansion packs where you could get some rarer teas that are higher quality and are follow the theme of that month's issue, allowing you to drink more teas along with the reading that is happening and learn even more. And so that's what we've done. So now there are 3 tiers. There's the regular subscription, which is just a tea and a magazine, and then the next one you get a second tea. So you get 2 teas in the magazine, and then the highest one you get 3 teas in the magazine and also a gift for the highest one. And they're chosen very intentionally, and it's to offer a learning experience. So, for example, this month we have an amazing tea, Inner Resolve, which is another of those teas that if it weren't donated, we couldn't send because it would be beyond our budget. It's an incredible pour tea from the early 2000s. The person who partially donated didn't donate, but basically said, "What's your budget?" We said our budget. He made a face because the tea is obviously much more expensive than that budget, and then gave us that at that price. So it's partially donated. And we couldn't have sent it otherwise. It's such a beautiful tea. And so it's an he said year 2000. I'm not 100% sure. It's just early 2000s, we know. So the 2 extra teas, let's say you had subscription, the 2 extra teas for this month, one is a Maucha from around the same time, from 2000. So actually it's like 99 maybe, and from a similar region. So that allows you to get a feel for the difference between cake versus loose leaf, aged from about the same region, from about the same age, and aged in mostly the same spot. Not completely, but mostly the same spot. Inner Resolve was in Hong Kong for maybe a few years, I think. But lets you kind of learn about that. And then the third tea is a 2004 EU, a really amazing EU, that is even younger, but has the exact same storage as the Inner Resolve. So it was in Hong Kong for a few years and then in Taiwan. And it allows you then to taste the difference between like the region. So even though the Inner Resolve is older, you get to experience like what the effect of like a higher quality region or raw material versus that. And so these 3 basically semi-aged Zhengs are all kind of similar eras, but yet provide lessons that you could unpack from them. You could also just enjoy them and forget about all that learning if you like. But there's lessons to unpack, and we're doing that each and every month from now on. And the third exciting news, we've enjoyed these broadcasts a lot. It seems you guys have too as well. So we've decided that we're going to do an online tea course. It's the first one we've ever done. And I'm not traveling this year at all, so this is a really wonderful opportunity to learn, to begin a tea practice, or if you have one, to deepen it. I'm going to do a really concerted effort. I'm going to work with the guys. We're going to come up with a way to make this course for new students and old students both, so that no matter where you are in your tea journey, there's going to be something in this course for you. It's going to be in July. It's going to be starting on July 18th, Saturday, and go till Friday. It's going to be 1 week. And it'll be, when you sign up for it, you'll have access to it for 1 month. So it'll have its own domain. We have found a platform to do this, and the videos will be there for you for a month. And there'll be forums to ask questions. There will be supplementary material, so there'll be like some PDFs and some maybe links to other videos for you to watch. And then we'll meet live 2 hours every day for that entire week. There will also be meditation instructions. There'll be all kinds of things. So each day I'll also give you some homework. Because we're all around the world, you don't need to feel obligated to attend all of the 7 live 2-hour broadcasts. So if you work, or if it's at a bad time for you, we're going to try and arrange the time so that it's as best as it could be for everybody. I think we're thinking about 9 a.m. Taiwan time. So that's going to be night for some people. It's going to be day for some others. But you don't have to attend the live because, first of all, it'll be there on the website so you can watch it later. Second of all, there'll be the forums. So even in terms of question and answer, you could watch the first day's video, for example, later on, and then you could put some questions in the forums, and those questions will be addressed the very next day. So you don't need to, or they'll be addressed in the forum itself. So actually, you could not come to any of the live teachings and watch them all in your own time. And we'll continue to keep that forum active for about a month after. So in other words, you could sign up and then you could watch it a week later and still go into the forums and ask your questions and get your questions answered. So it will be a really wonderful opportunity for us all to learn about tea together. And as I said, I'm going to make a strong effort to be as prepared as I can for this course and think about how to make it a course for everybody, how to include some new information. Although I feel like if you're an old student, you should want to revisit the basics. But that said, I am going to try and make it some interesting for everybody. So for 2 hours a day, we'll meet. We'll do that live. It'll be recorded though, so you'll be able to go on the website. You'll have access to it for a month. You don't have to feel obligated to attend the live in order to take this course. And in this course, I'm going to hopefully be able to provide you with all the philosophical, ceremonial, and practical details you need to begin or deepen a tea practice. So we will cover the brewing methods, we will cover fire, water, teaware, everything, and then we'll also talk about how to make a tea more of a way of life or a practice of self-cultivation, or incorporate it into an already existing practice of self-cultivation. So I hope you guys are excited for this. We plan today or tomorrow to launch this website. I would say, at the absolute latest, if there's any hiccups, by midweek. But hopefully even today or tomorrow, we'll have it up. We've already found the platform. We're just putting together the details of it. So I'm really excited about this. I've never done anything like this. This is the first time that we've done use technology to do teachings. There's a loss and a gain. The gain obviously is convenience, and people can have a whole month to digest this information from their own home all over the world, which is beautiful, and maybe more people can attend. And the cost barrier will be less. Usually when I travel somewhere, unless you live right there next to where the events are. If I go to New York, if you live in New York, then maybe the cost is not so high. But if you live in, Indiana, then it is expensive for you to come to the course. This course, we're going to make it $108 for the whole week. Or the whole month. You'll have access to it for a month. So for a month's worth of teachings and those 2 hours every day is the price we came up with. It's obviously sacred Buddhist number, so that's why we chose it. So I feel like it's a good price too, so more people can come. The negative of it obviously is that we'll not be looking at each other, and there's something about obviously being able to be in person and share tea together and hand out the same bowls of tea and stuff. That's obviously the loss of doing it this way, of course. But I hope you guys are excited about it. It's a different and new way of exploring this wonderful practice together. By the way, back to the cost. The last thing I'll say is $108. However, if you have some financial problems due to the pandemic or any other reason, please contact us. We are going to have a whole bunch of scholarships available for people who can't attend. So I don't want finances to be a barrier to being able to attend this course. So please contact us if that's an issue for you. All right. So today, briefly, a smaller lesson, I think, because I took a lot of time with those announcements. I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk about one of my favorite Zen slogans. I think it's very pertinent to the times that we're facing nowadays. And it's one of my favorites, so it's beautiful to think about. And I'll just introduce it partially. So this one comes with a little bit of homework. I want you to go contemplate this slogan and think about it in terms of your own life and what it means to you. The slogan is, with Zen, every day is a good day. And without Zen, even good days are bad days. It's a very bold statement. With Zen, every day is a good day. Without Zen, even good days are bad days. You might, from the outset, interpret this as, religious intolerance. The kind of philosophy of our way is the way. But actually nothing could be further from the truth in terms of Zen. One of the things I love about Zen actually is it is self-deprecating. So since the beginning, Zen has always made strong efforts to declare and even celebrate the fact that, hey, this Zen thing that is not it. Right? There's a famous Zen saying that Zen is a stall selling water next to a river. So the truth is all around us, and Zen is like a sham. Teachers are a sham. Zen is a sham because the truth is inside of you and it's all around. You don't need YouTube videos. You don't need a teacher. You don't need a book. You don't need anything. You need a bowl of tea. You need the sun, the stars. You need your own heart, your own wisdom. So Zen has always had that kind of irreverence of like, this thing that we practice is not it, right? The finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. It can point to it, but it's not it. So when we say with Zen every day is a good day, and without Zen, even good days are bad days, we aren't talking about the fact that this Zen religion is the way and all other ways are wrong, or that kind of intolerance or that kind of way of approaching things is very un-Zen, very anti-Zen. So Zen has the opposite. A lot of even tricking and joking and irreverence, and even towards the Buddha. You may have heard the phrase, if you see the Buddha coming, kill him, which is the idea that only Buddha can meet Buddha. So it's the idea that as long as the Buddha's over there and you're over here, that's not the Buddha that you're looking at. And when the Buddha inside of you, which Buddha means awakened one, when the awakened, enlightened mind in you opens up, then all is Buddha, right? And nothing is Buddha also, because if all is Buddha, then you can't. If everything in the world was blue, then there's no such thing as blue. The fish doesn't know water. So, that cheeky irreverence isn't meant to be like, if you see the Buddha coming, kill him. It's not a literal thing. It's just a reminder to not think that, our way is better than any other way. There's not one way to do it, and all ways are just fingers pointing at the moon. So arguing about whose finger is better is kind of pointless, because they're all just, their job is to show the way, and when you see the way, you see the way. This is, I spoke about this last week. Teachings are not, you do me disservice if you turn my teaching into dogma. So if you take my teaching and say, well, Buddha figured this out about tea, or maybe like my teacher or his teacher figured it out and then handed it down. So it's been handed down, it's been proven generation to generation, therefore it's true. And then you just go start saying it to others, or you start assuming that it's real. You're doing me a disservice, because you're also doing the teaching a disservice, because the point of that teaching was to help you to experience that truth more expediently. It was not to be a substitute for that experience. So the teaching wasn't given in the spirit of, oh, now others have realized this truth, I don't have to. The teaching was given in the spirit of, if I give you this teaching, you could experience this truth maybe more quickly. In other words, by me pointing out where the moon is, you could find it more quickly than your own searching. But as Basho said very beautifully in his Zen poem, right? I seek not to follow in the footsteps of the masters, but rather I seek what they sought. I seek what they sought. And so you do all teachings a disservice when you turn them into dogma. This is why the first foundation of Zen is no doctrine, no dogma, no scripture, right? It has to be real experience. The scripture, the doctrine, the teachings are all given in the spirit of, hey, may this teaching help you to realize these truths better and more quickly. May they be a guide to your own realization, not others have had this realization, now I don't have to. That's a disservice. And that relates to tea too. If you take any aspect of tea and turn what I say into a dogma or a doctrine, you do that thing a disservice, then you do me a disservice, because that was not the foundation of that teaching. The foundation of that teaching was to help you to cultivate a real understanding of that practice in your hands, not to just blindly follow a method because you think someone else figured it out and therefore you don't have to, right? So this phrase is not that. When you say with Zen, every day is a good day, we're not talking about Zen as in Zen Buddhism. We're not talking about a religion. The word Zen, it comes from the Chinese Chan. Chan in the south of China was pronounced San, and the Japanese turned that into Zen. Chan itself, if we continue to follow the etymology of the word, is a translation of the Sanskrit dhyana. And dhyana, we could spend an hour talking about and not exhaust its depth. It's a very beautiful and powerful word. Dhyana means the meditative mind. So this slogan, we can substitute the meditative mind and disassociate all of the religious stuff, all of like beliefs in Buddhism or anything like that from this, because otherwise it does border on that kind of intolerance. And that's not the spirit of the slogan. So it's saying with the meditative mind, every day is a good day. And without the meditative mind, even good days are bad days. That's the spirit of the slogan. So kind of what that means is it's about letting go of attachment. It's about letting go of the part of the mind that evaluates. Right? As my great uncle used to say in his own simple way, any day above the ground is a good day. When you let go of attachment, there are no longer good or bad days. Days that are challenging bring growth. They bring strength. I turn the suffering into medicine. I learn lessons in those days. And days that are comfortable and joyous are also wonderful. So without attachment, every day just is what it is. And if it's a day where you're alive, wonderful. Because even your most miserable day already has thousands and millions of conditions for learning and for joy even. Your most miserable morning, if I gave that morning to a blind person, they would be running around celebrating all the reds and purples. If I gave it to a deaf person, they would be running around celebrating all the noise. You see, so there's already a tremendous amount of conditions for gratitude and for love and joy, even in a miserable day. And there's also lots of juice, lots of lessons, lots of learning, lots of growth in those days. And then good days are good days. But the second half of the phrase, without the meditative mind, even good days are bad days. Why? Because two things. There are several. As I said, I'm not going to exhaust this slogan because you can spend a lifetime unpacking it, and I want you to go unpack it more, especially as it relates to yourself. But I'm going to talk about two areas where good days aren't so good without the meditative mind. The first is that what can start to happen is that life starts to be, the majority of life starts to be things you have to get over in order to get to these little snapshots in your photo album. So there are the good days, which are the snapshots in the photo album, and then the rest is just stuff to get through. I can't wait to get through this day of work so that I can get to tomorrow when I have a day off. Like that kind of idea, and a bunch of your life starts to be blah. And you're living only for those little snapshots. And actually the majority of life and truth and power is happening in all that blah. And as you make that habit of not here but there, not now but then, as you create that mind to try to get through that blah, that means even when you get to the good day, you won't really be present because you have created a habit pattern in your mind of constantly projecting yourself into the future. So that's the first problem. The second problem is then that without the meditative mind, we get attached to the configuration of that good day. Even as it's happening, if you're very sensitive, a good day, a comfortable day, a wonderful day, when everything's going well, if you're sensitive, you can feel the tendrils of your ego slowly, like octopus tentacles, sticking to it, starting to, in other words, generate a feeling of, I want things to stay like this. Oh, this is good. It should always be like this. And the moment that it starts to come apart, which it must, starts to be resistance. And then when it does come apart, there's the suffering of it coming apart. And then the next day, which is a bad day, is even worse. Because now it's contrasted to the way things were in those good times. So it's even more painful. Now that you've tasted the good, the bad is even more painful because you're comparing it now. So it just creates a lot of suffering. And you realize that your evaluation system is corrupt. The software is bonk. It's a virus. First of all, there's two aspects to that. The first one is that we assume with very little analysis, we assume that the qualities that we perceive in things are in the thing. That movie sucks. That the sucks is in the movie. But it's not, it's in our mind. I say durian is awful. But the disgustingness of durian is not in the durian. It's in me. If the durian was objectively disgusting, then everyone in the earth would find it disgusting. But actually, there's a whole slew of people, I think they're bat crazy, who love durian. They think it's delicious. And they're crazy for it, right? I think they're mad. But that's the point. We just assume that disgusting is a quality of durian, but it's not. It's a quality of our mind. And that goes for even an extremely absurd example, right? Like you might say, well, durian, some people like it, some people don't. But what about like a big pile of poo in the road? Everybody doesn't like that. Well, actually, like, dung beetles live in dung. And they'll be like stoked. Ooh, a big pile of dung. Wonderful. And they'll roll around in it and take it home. And the earth itself, that doesn't make any sense because all the food that we do like that dung is the fertilizer that grows the delicious broccoli that we do like to eat. So it also is dung, really. So the earth likes dung. It's good fertilizer. So the quality that we perceive in things is not real. It's a kink in the system. Things are not good or bad. Nothing is good or bad unless thinking make it so. It's not. The quality is not in the thing, it's in us. So that's important, like first issue. The second issue is a little bit, I guess, more subtle, but it's just that oftentimes when the days that we think of as bad, as I said, those are the learning days. Those are the days that unlock things. This whole approach to life where there is success and failure, good and bad days, is a really unskillful approach to life because it floods the arena of the Tao, as we talked about a few lessons ago. You can go watch that broadcast after this one. It doesn't allow the Tao, it doesn't allow nature its course, right? So you're so bent, I keep using this example, right? You're so bent on getting a job. This job is your dream job. It's your dream job. It's everything. You have to get it. All your happiness is bent on it. All your life, if you're going to have any good day forever, you have to have that thing. And you don't get that job. So according to the ego, that was a big failure in your life, a big failure. But then you don't get that job and you move to New York and you meet your future husband and you meet a Zen teacher and start participating in a local Zen community. And through that, you learn, you find the passion of writing calligraphy. You start taking calligraphy lessons. And 20 years later, you have 2 beautiful children. You have a thriving Zen practice and Zen community and a calligraphy that you love in your free time and a new job. And you look around at all those things, your children, your husband, your calligraphy practice, your Zen community, and all of them are so essential for who you are. They are so essential for everything that you love about life. And yet none of them could have happened without that so-called failure. So there is no failure and success. There's no good and bad days. Every day is a good day. If you are alive, that's a very, very, very positive thing and much better than the alternative. Although even the alternative is that is what it is. When you're dead, you're dead. When you're alive, you're alive. So with this meditative mind, which means without attachment, we can we can relate to life in a way that every day is a good day. If today is challenging, so I let the day be what it is. And whatever it is, celebrate it. Be grateful for it. Be grateful even for the challenges. Be grateful even for the grief. Grief means love. So that's my lesson for today. A good one. As I said, there's a lot to unpack in that slogan. I would take it to the bank and keep it around and think about it and come up with your own ideas, and especially relate it to your own life and maybe some skillful ways of contemplating and thinking about and practicing in your own day-to-day life. Okay, and have some question now.
So first questions from the app. Wesley is asking, can you please offer your perspective and wisdom on the civil unrest, grief and anguish that many cities and communities in the US are experiencing at the moment?
So you can leave questions in the app. If you can't come to these broadcasts, someone in the app asked me to offer my perspective on I guess the rioting that's happening now in the United States. I don't really have much to say about that, other than the fact that we humans are ignorant. We're fools. And I know that because I'm a human and I'm incredibly foolish. And so I have no place to judge the foolishness of other people when I'm such a fool. And I'm not the moral judge of anybody. But obviously, violence is unskillful. It's an unskillful resolution of any issue and does not resolve anything. Because even if you're aggressive towards the problem, if I attack Connor because he did something wrong, genuinely wrong to me, and so I attack him, or let's say even worse, I kill him, then his brother just wants to kill me now. And then I have to fight his brother. And then it's endless. It is a spread, right? And this is why some of the great political activists of the history of this planet discovered that love is even more powerful. Gandhi and Martin Luther King, that through love we can take strong action against injustice and against things that are inappropriate without harming. I think you have to remember that, like, if I protest something because it's unjust, even if I win, so there's an unjust law and it's obviously unjust, and we need to do something to stop it. So we take some action, and then we overturn that law. That's wonderful. But remember, now that we've overturned that law, we have to go back to living and being neighbors and conducting commerce with the people that we were protesting against. And so if the process of overturning that law is done in a way that breaks that relationship completely, it just contributes to the problem. It doesn't make things better. So, but obviously, there's no. I don't think anyone watching a video about tea and meditation and Zen on YouTube is also participating in riots. So there's also an aspect of this where, like, somebody who's rioting obviously isn't going to respond to any rational discussion. The behavior is obviously irrational, and it's motivated by emotions, and it's foolish. And I'm also not anybody's judge of that, because I also have foolishly reacted to my emotions in an irrational way. I did it just this week. I could probably, if I sat down and think about it, come up with a bunch of examples. It's a part of being human. On a practical level, I think that the quarantine has been psychologically difficult for a lot of people, and then that makes things tense. And when things are already tense, it doesn't take much to ignite them. And as far as what we can do about it, we can send metta and love and hopefully and not react with fear or anger. And that because that which you resist, as Ursula Le Guin said it very beautifully, that which you resist persists. Right? There used to be signs in the 60s, hippies make police make hippies. The hippies come out to protest the government and the war in Vietnam, which is unjust. The police come and beat them. More people see that on TV and get more angry and want to go out and protest, and it just solidifies stance. Yeah. So that's all I really have to say about that. If if you need some advice, my advice is don't riot. But I don't think that's going to be an issue for anybody here.
Another question from the app. Mike Boss would like to know what to do with pu'er that has been stored in less than ideal conditions and has inherited a taste that covers all the tea. Is it possible to correct bad storage, and how?
Good question. Is it possible to correct bad storage in pu'er? That's not an easy one to answer. The tentative answer is yes, you can correct bad storage, but it depends on how far gone the tea is. So if the tea is extremely wet or extremely dry, it's going to be difficult to bring it back. My experience is that it takes roughly double the time to correct storage. So like tea that was a little too wet, you'll have to put it like in a dryer. If it was too wet for like 5 years, it'll take like 10 years in a not just the right humidity, but even more, a little bit dry, and it'll start to lose some of those wet flavors. But there's a point at which too wet or too dry is not correctable. I think too dry damages the tea even quicker. Though too wet, very, very wet, it can mold and then also damage very quickly. But yes, you can. And we're doing that all the time. So that's the art of pu'er storage, is going into we have hydrometers around all our tea. So we are constantly measuring humidity in all the storage facilities in the center. And then you can adjust, you can move things. The humidity can change as much as 3% from floor to ceiling. So you can move things down and up. You can package it, you can keep it in a box wrapped up, or you can open it and expose it a little bit more, etc. So trying to do those kinds of corrections as it journeys is a part of aging pu'er.
Okay, so question from YouTube. I was wondering if Buddha can share the first time he felt that he understood the meaning of surrender. What is the insight he had at that time, and what preceded it?
I don't know. I really can't answer. Somebody's asking him, what was the first time I experienced surrender? And what initiated it? I don't know. I could tell you a very big one. I don't know the first. I think life is teaching us surrender from the moment we're born. It's like we're like, I'm so cool, and life's like, nah, you're not. And then we're like, yeah, but I'm really cool, and then life's like, nah, you're not so cool. And I think that's just human existence, yeah. But a very big one, some of you know, really huge one for me, that actually, you could think about it like in terms of prayer, because literally I was praying for a year or more for more vulnerability, for more openness, surrender, more yin, more receptivity. And then one ordinary Tuesday, right? And this can be related to what we were saying earlier, because from an ordinary perspective, I had a very bad day, but that day changed everything, changed my whole life, and it was certainly not a bad day. But ordinary Tuesday, I fell and broke my knee. I shattered my knee into my kneecap into nine or 10 pieces, 2 of which were compound, so coming out of the skin. So it was extremely intense, life-changing day. And so all that vulnerability I'd been praying to, it was like that broken knee was like a letter from, a letter from God or the Bodhisattvas or the sacred, right? The God or the Tao. God sent me a letter and said, hey Buddha, you've been praying for lots of vulnerability. Here's a broken knee. And the result was that, I was literally a child. I couldn't go to the bathroom myself. I couldn't, make any of my food or do anything. I was literally completely, utterly vulnerable. And it was everything. All basic life functions had to be done with the help of other people. And it took me 3 surgeries and many years to physically overcome that. And I find it really significant that, we bend our knees is like this. Maybe I'm just writing into this, but, we bend our knees in humility, and like the fact that kind of the world came and bent my knees for me, made me bend down, made me remember my own vulnerability that I had been asking for. And that was just and I had to completely surrender to everything. I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. It was just a complete surrender to the help of others, to love. It even resulted in a beautiful connection with Joyce. I could easily write a version where that was a bad day, but it certainly was not. It was a tremendous learning experience that continued on for years and changed everything I am, and now it's essential. In fact, for me, one of the big losses was I could no longer sit lotus, which is very important in Zen lineage. Being able to sit full lotus is a big part of what meditation is, and I lost the ability to do that. The doctors said I wouldn't even be able to meditate an hour sitting cross-legged, and here I am several years later, and I can sit an hour and a half or 2 hours cross-legged. I can sit 30 minutes half lotus. I can sit like 4 or 5 minutes lotus. So who knows? Maybe it'll come back. But that also forced me to let go of that idea that sitting lotus made me a good boy, or that it's necessary for meditation, and to just let go of attachment to form and surrender to what is. So that's a big example in my life. But we all have many, many such things to learn surrender. We are learning it all the time until we can surrender more and more. But surrendering, is for me it's a daily practice. It's not something that is isolated to just the big breakthroughs of surrender in my life. So it's not something I relate to specifically in terms of your question, where you're asking what big jolts of surrender. Certainly I have those. I have a lot of deaths in my life. I've experienced a lot of death. There's a lot of surrender and all of that. My knee, there's all these big ones, but for me surrender is I'm working with it every day on a small kind of surrendering all little things, surrendering deep down even the ego's desire to control things.
Frederick Bavaria is asking, in the past you've said drink less tea. Could you tell us more about that?
Drink less tea. Yeah, well, if you think of tea and drink less tea is what somebody's asking. If you think of tea as medicine, ultimately less is more. The more you take it, the better you get, the less you need. There's that aspect. There's also the aspect of sensitivity. So as your sensitivity increases, you need less tea to be able to perceive what's going on. And as your sensitivity gets more subtle, something my teacher says all the time, actually no 2 leaves are the same under heaven. So the highest kung fu is when you brew every single leaf singly, because every single leaf is actually a unique tea. I don't know anyone's ever reached that level, but it's good to have goals that are unreachable, so that you continue to remain a student and strive and grow for your entire life. The only masters are those who have passed away. The rest of us are students of Zen. So that's the simple answer to that, is that as you get more subtle, you need less of it. But there's another aspect to this, which is the aspect of sharing then with others. So I would say also the everything in tea is a movement towards less. Lu Yu said in the oldest surviving book on tea, it's not the oldest, but it's the oldest surviving book on tea, the Cha Jing, that the spirit of tea is frugality, is poverty. This poverty is not this is the poverty of the teachings of Buddha and Jesus. It's a spiritual poverty. It's not a poverty of a lack of resources. If a lack of resources was a spiritual quality, this would be a much more spiritual earth, because the majority of humans lack resources. And so if that was the qualification for spiritual cultivation, this world would be incredibly cultivated. But the fact is, you can lack resources and still covet resources. You might covet them even more than those that have them. So the poverty that was the teaching of Jesus and Buddha, the spiritual poverty, has nothing to do with the presence or absence of any given resource. It's about a conscious, intentional renunciation of the world and the things of the world. It's also a humbleness of spirit, a simplicity. And so Lu Yu is saying the spirit of tea is simplicity. He was, in part, on an outward level, he was reacting to the highly embellished and extremely ornate tea ceremonies of the court and the rich people of his time. So in part, he was making a polemic against that. But then on a deeper level, what he was really talking about is that the essence of tea is the essence of Zen, which is the spirit of poverty, which is a conscious, intentional renunciation of worldly desire, and also a humbleness of spirit, so that things are reducing to simplicity. And so don't confuse less with less, something less physically. The answer to that aspect of less tea is what I said earlier, that as you become more sensitive, you don't need so much tea to experience the frequency of tea, and also you don't need so much in your body because it's already in there. And so, like my teacher said, as you brew tea over the years, you start to put less in your pot because you're more sensitive, you're more able to taste it, and there's that aspect. But then there are the times you share tea and you go back to putting more, because sometimes strong tea is needed. So that's the physical part. But I think the spiritual part has nothing to do with the amount of tea one is consuming, and is more just about that less is less. Some of my paintings, I write the calligraphy that tea drinks people, and I'll paint some teaware there without any people, as though tea has drunk the person up, as though the experience of drinking tea has left us egoless, so that everything becomes, the less is more. Simplicity is good. And that what you do choose to add is added intentionally and not unconsciously. So yesterday we had a tea class around here, and this was our whole theme, right? You're not gathering things to try to fill that hole in you. That, like, if I buy this shirt or this new hi-fi gear, it will, or a pen, these are things I'm interested in. So if I get that pen or that thing, then that thing will make me happy. Like unconsciously trying to consume in order to fulfill your life, which is not possible. So when you add something Zen and tea are space-first living. So we don't view space as something to fill. Like the ordinary person looks at space and is like, what am I going to put in that? Just like when they don't have anything to do, right? They start tapping their knee, and how do I fill this time? Right? The tea person, isn't trying to fill time. When there's space, the Zen person is like, yeah, space, right? So even a lot of Zen friends in this quarantine are like, yeah, no work, space. So I live space first. Space first living. So in space first living, because I respect space more than what can occupy it, if I'm going to add something to space, I'm going to do so intentionally. Like there's a reason why that thing is going to go there, and I'm going to learn from it, and it's going to do something. And then I'm also not attached when it goes. Because when it goes, now there's more space, which is primary to me. So less is always more in all things. Frugality is always more and more things. You could think of this in terms of also like you can just as easily turn tea into a whole new obsession and collection, and you can get all lost in the bowl and forget the soul. If that's happening, then go back to leaves in a bowl and simplify your tea.
Can it ever be positive to expect a negative experience as a negative experience and move on? Will the lesson find us at a later time?
I'm not sure I understand the question. One more time? Sorry.
Can it ever be positive to expect a negative experience as a negative experience and just move on? Will the lesson still find us at a later time?
Can it be positive to expect a negative experience as a negative experience and just move on?
As opposed to what you talk
as
about.
opposed to like not evaluating. I think not evaluating is a much more clear way of experiencing the moment. If you're assuming it's going to be negative, you're already like cutting off some of the lessons, and you're creating resistance to it, which means it's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen as deeply, and the lessons that suffering are going to bring are not going to work as powerfully because you're assuming that the experience is negative or you're expecting it to be negative. But what I'm talking about is learning to let go and not be attached, and let experience just be experience without even the interpretation of negative or positive, which isn't real anyway. As I said, enduring is not disgusting. It's disgusting to me. That's in me, not enduring. So it's about the clarity of like just letting experience be experience and being unattached to something that's negative. I mean, it's easy to take a stance and say, well, isn't obviously breaking your knee negative? No, it's obviously painful. It's obviously unpleasant. And I'm obviously not expecting it or seeking it. Right? So we have a no in Zen, which is no comfort orientation, but that doesn't mean discomfort orientation. Zen isn't masochism. I'm not seeking pain. That's absurd. I'm just not seeking pleasure. There's a difference. Right? I'm not seeking to go out to a movie doesn't mean I am seeking to go out to dinner. So I'm not, there's no point in seeking suffering just because it brings growth. You don't have to anyway. If you don't have suffering in your life, wait a minute. It's certainly coming. There's not any need to go out looking for trouble. Trouble's all around. And so challenges are coming. But the obstacle is the road. It's not something in the road. So the whole idea that like this rock in my road, in my life experience, you see, that experience will be a part of your life for all eternity. Once you're gone, once you're dead, from the moment of your birth to the moment of your death, at that moment, that experience will have happened in this world, and it can never, ever, ever be taken out. Even if this earth continues for another 15 billion years, or this universe, I mean. Even if the earth goes on another 5 billion and then the universe goes on another 15, that experience will never be taken out of the fabric of all that it is. It is a part of all things. You can't take it away. It's not a thing that's in your path and that you can say, what if it wasn't there once it is there? So I'm not saying it's destined to be there. I'm not saying when you're approaching it, you shouldn't take steps to avoid it. So like, obviously, take steps to avoid all suffering. And none of it is determined, and that's just obvious, right? But even then, if your attitude is more of non-attachment, you'll be more clear and efficacious in your decision making and in your response, that allows you to be more free of suffering, but on a deeper level, free of suffering because you're not scrambling so hard to seek comfort and avoid discomfort. So that, which is a futile, doesn't work. If it did work, then it would be worth discussing, but it doesn't. There's no amount of scrambling that is going to save you from suffering. So much better to learn to deal with the inevitable suffering, while at the same time making healthy, intelligent choices to avoid as much suffering as possible. But doing so even without expectation, it makes those steps even more efficacious when you can do them without expectations, right? So, it's not about getting over something, right? It is certainly about getting around it. It has to be overcome, right? But the obstacle isn't really overcome by just saying that sucked and moving on and like forgetting it. Nor is it by like dwelling on it either, but experiencing what is happening right now. And that includes my ability to see patterns and choose the path of least resistance, choose the way to flow, right? And be in a more healthy relationship between what I have control over, what I don't have control over, and learning how to accept what I don't have control over, and learning how to work with what I do have control over. So that's it for our time. Good questions. Most of them beyond me. I just throwing some stones. But there's a lot for me to chew on from this gathering and from these questions. Thank you. And I hope some of you will consider, we'll try to come back and put the link in this video, and also it'll be all over our social media for the course that we're going to do in July. Hope some of you consider joining, and we can explore tea together for a week through the modern technology. I'm really excited. I've never done anything like this. I'm going to take some time and prepare for it and make it as good as I can. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful week. Drink lots of tea. Stay safe, and don't do any rioting.